and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us here today at Busselton Jetty. My name is Victoria. I'm the Environment Officer here today, and I'm here to celebrate SeaWeek, which is a national campaign aimed at educating and inspiring people to think a little bit more about our oceans and to celebrate them. So today we would like to celebrate SeaWeek here at Busselton Jetty by talking about ocean literacy, which is all about understanding our relationship with the oceans. So what we'll do today is we will go through the 7 principles of ocean literacy one by one. And if you'd like, you can follow along. We do have a little worksheet that you can download on our website, and that might help you think about your own relationship with the oceans as well. So starting off with number 1, ocean literacy principle number 1 is that the Earth is one big ocean with many features. We give the oceans different names, like the Indian Ocean, which you are looking out at today through the webcams at Busselton Jetty. But all the oceans are connected, which means that the Atlantic Ocean, the Pacific Ocean, and the Indian Ocean are all one big ocean connected together by waterways. Oceans cover about 70% of planet Earth, and you might have even heard Earth called the blue planet before, and that's because the ocean is the major defining feature of planet Earth. In those oceans, we have different habitats, many different geological features as well. Coral reefs, like the one that we're looking at today, are probably the most famous. But of course, we have things like underwater mountain ranges, kelp forests, abyssal plains, lots of different types of habitats. Here at Busselton Jetty, we of course have the reef growing underneath the jetty. So today we are looking at some white fluffy telesto coral on the jetty pylons. And then on the left-hand side, you can see some rough bullseyes. But if you swim further out away from the jetty, you will see that the vast majority of Geograph Bay, where we are located, is covered in seagrass meadows. So it's a sandy seabed, very soft sediment, and lots of seagrass. We're actually the second largest seagrass meadow in Australia, and it is an incredibly important environment for our marine life. It provides shelter, habitat, food, oxygen, and lots of places for nursery habitat as well. So lots of fish will lay their eggs there. Ocean principle number 2 is the ocean and life in the ocean shape the features of Earth. So for example, many of our rocks that we see on Earth today were actually formed in the water in ancient oceans. The most famous example, of course, is limestone, which is created by crushed up seashells over millions and millions of years. These seashells get compacted under the great pressure of the ocean's weight. Layers and layers of sediment pile on top of each other, and we end up with limestone rock, which will eventually be exposed on our coastlines as the Earth changes and shifts over time. Even on a small scale, we can see how oceans can impact the coasts. If you have a look at the beach, compare what the beach looks like before and after a storm, or maybe in the summer compared to the winter. Wave action, the tides, storms, all of that can really change the way that our coastlines look. The seagrass meadows that I mentioned earlier here in Geograph Bay play a really important role in protecting our beach here in Busselton. So that seagrass absorbs the wave action as it comes into shore, means that there's less erosion and means that our beach doesn't get washed away quite as much as it would have otherwise. So once again, the life in the oceans can also shape the features of the Earth. Ocean principle number 3 is that the ocean is a major influence on climate and weather. So, for example, if we start with the water cycle, most of the rain on Earth comes from tropical oceans. So as oceans near the equator heat up from the sun's radiation, some of that water will evaporate into the air. It gets moved around by wind currents and then falls down on Earth. So most of our rain comes from these tropical areas. But also, if we think about something called the global conveyor belt, which is the network of marine currents that travel all around the world, that has a huge impact on our climate. What the global conveyor belt is, as I mentioned, it's ocean currents moving around. So these currents go from the equator to the poles, which means that warm water gets distributed away from the equator to the colder areas. So that's going north and then going south as well. As these warm waters move away from the equator, cold water from the bottom of the ocean upwells and comes up to fill that void. So we get this rotation of hot and cold water moving around the world, which helps moderate our climate and keeps the planet at a comfortable temperature for life to survive. The ocean is really critical in maintaining our climate. That is something that's a big discussion these days as we think about climate change more and more. The ocean absorbs the vast majority of the sun's radiation that hits the Earth, so it's important in helping keep our planet cool. It also absorbs about half of the world's carbon dioxide emissions as well. So that's something that, of course, we have to consider as we try to minimize our impact on the Earth and on our oceans. Oceans also produce about half of the world's oxygen as well. So they're really, really important in maintaining that balance. In the southwest here, the Luan Current is our major climate driver. So that is a warm water current that comes all the way from Indonesia down the western side of the continent. And it moderates our climate in a way that makes us not as cold as you might expect it to be here in Busselton. We are quite far south, about 32 degrees south of the equator. Most places around that area would be quite cold, but because of that warm water coming southwards to us, we have a more of a temperate Mediterranean style climate, which allows lots of tropical or subtropical species to survive here. So things like the corals that you're looking at and the sponges, a lot of that is thanks to the Luan Current. Ocean principle number 4 is that the ocean makes life habitable. So as I said, the ocean is critical to life on Earth. And in fact, it's believed that the first life evolved in the oceans. Aside from controlling our climate, the ocean, of course, provides us with water, important nutrients, and as I said, at least 50% of the oxygen available. So without the ocean and without a healthy ocean, life on Earth would not be possible. Ocean principle number 5 is that the ocean supports a great diversity of life and lots of different kinds of ecosystems. Marine ecosystems are impacted by lots of different factors, including light, pressure, temperature, available nutrients, the strength of the currents, and even the chemical makeup of the water. What this means is that marine ecosystems are highly variable with great biodiversity. Just at the jetty alone, we know of at least 300 marine species that have been recorded underneath the jetty, some of which you're looking at right now. So we've got some wrasse, some black-headed pullers, and once again, some rough bullseyes that you can see on the left-hand side of the screen. Something that you can do to explore more of the marine species at Busselton Jetty is have a look at our iNaturalist page. That is linked on our website, or you can just Google iNaturalist Busselton Jetty, and you'll be able to explore some of the species that people have taken photos of here beneath the waves. The second last ocean principle is number 6, and it's my favorite one, and it's that the ocean and humans are interconnected. So it's estimated that globally, about 40% of people live within 100 kilometers of the ocean. So about 40% of people live relatively close to the coast. In Australia, that number is much higher. 85% of people live within 50 kilometers of the coast in Australia. So to us, for our country here, the ocean is incredibly important to lots of people. Every single person on Earth, no matter how close or far you live from the ocean, depends on a healthy ocean for survival. So alongside oxygen and climate control, like we talked about earlier, the ocean provides us with food, jobs, recreation, and even things like medicine. Seafood in particular is incredibly important. It's an important protein source for lots of people globally. And it is something that we need to think about how we can continue to use sustainably for the future. So we need to make sure that our fishing practices are responsible and able to maintain food for people for generations to come. Apart from our physical needs, we love the ocean. It's beautiful. It is good for our mental health. We like to spend time near the ocean, swimming, diving, snorkeling, surfing. Lots of cultures have indigenous stories about the importance of the ocean to their culture. It is something that connects lots of people together. And just like the oceans have an impact on us, we have an impact on the oceans to the coast. In Australia, that number is much higher. 85% of people live within 50 kilometers of the coast in Australia. So to us, for our country here, the ocean is incredibly important to lots of people. Every single person on Earth, no matter how close or far you live from the ocean, depends on a healthy ocean for survival. So alongside oxygen and climate control, like we talked about earlier, the ocean provides us with food, jobs, recreation, and even things like medicine. Seafood in particular is incredibly important. It's an important protein source for lots of people globally. And it is something that we need to think about how we can continue to use sustainably for the future. So we need to make sure that our fishing practices are responsible and able to maintain food for people for generations to come. Apart from our physical needs, we love the ocean. It's beautiful. It is good for our mental health. We like to spend time near the ocean, swimming, diving, snorkeling, surfing. Lots of cultures have indigenous stories about the importance of the ocean to their culture. It is something that connects lots of people together. And just like the oceans have an impact on us, we have an impact on the oceans. What we eat, what we buy, how we travel, and how we dispose of our waste can all play a huge role in the ocean's health. So our oceans are under incredible pressure from human activity, and as our population keeps growing, that pressure will continue to increase, which means that we can all play a part in lessening the pressure and thinking about the ways our actions can positively or negatively impact the marine world. Lastly, number 7, the ocean is largely unexplored. It is estimated that only 20% of the oceans have been explored, and there are likely millions of undiscovered species still to be found. We are learning more and more all the time, which is important because the more we learn, the better we can understand and protect our marine environments. So those are the 7 ocean principles. Once again, you can download the poster or the little activity guide if you want to have another read of those and look into that more. I hope that today's chat has inspired some of you to think about your own personal relationships with the ocean. Do you swim or snorkel or go fishing? Do you eat seafood? How does the ocean impact you? And that's something that I want you to think about. To best protect the ocean, we need people with all sorts of skills. So not just scientists, we need marine biologists, but we also need engineers, writers, educators, advocates, and artists, and people just like you that love the ocean and want to share that love with other people and encourage them to live in a way that treads lightly and helps protect our marine world. I hope that you all enjoyed and that you learned a little bit of ocean literacy today. If you would like to learn more, you're always welcome to visit our website. We have lots of resources online that you are free to download and explore. Thanks so much, everyone. Take care and happy SeaWeek.